So, welcome to another session of the Teaching Fair series. And I'm so excited to have with me today Dr. Patricia Schiaffini-Vedani, who will be talking about comprehensive advising and really thinking about the unique roles that we have as teachers to motivate, to identify talent, to nurture talent, and then also to support the well being of our students. So, Patty, please go ahead with your presentation and I'll probably have some follow-up questions at the end.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here with you all. I am currently the Director of International Collaborations at the graduate school, but I started as a graduate student, PhD student, and then as a faculty member. My PhD is in Chinese studies, and I taught Chinese and Chinese cultural classes and Chinese literature classes for over 2 decades. So I came but through my role as faculty, I understood also the role of mentorship, and I started developing what I, at the time, for lack of other way to say it, I call comprehensive advising, which is something that I continue practicing now in my role as an administrator. So let me. So the first thing that I realized, I didn't start teaching at an institution that had a lot of first-generation college students. I started teaching at the University of Pennsylvania, where I was pursuing my PhD. And students there, many of them were lucky enough not to need to work, so they were kind of full-time students. They were very active and they looked for scholarships and experiential learning opportunities on their own. So as a PhD student starting to teach, I realized that most of these opportunities, I was informed through my own students. They will come and tell me, hey, I'm applying for Fulbright. I'm applying for whatever other scholarship. I'm applying for an internship. So I was very excited to see that my students always seemed to know what they wanted to do in life. They were very focused, very, and very knowledgeable about opportunities that our campus offered. Then I graduated and I went to work as an instructor to Pomona College. And I found a similar group of, students, a similar population. They were also full-time students and they came from families who had gone to college previously, so they had a lot of advising also at home. So I felt that I didn't need to do a lot of advising myself because my students seemed to be on top of things and they seemed to know how to engage in undergraduate research, how to apply for internships, how to apply for competitive scholarships. After that, I started teaching at Texas State University. And Texas State University has a population similar to our population here, student population, a lot of first-generation college students. So the situation changed. I felt that I had to be the one introducing my students to all of these experiential learning opportunities because my students didn't even know that existed. So I was just starting there as a new faculty and asking my students, hey, have you applied for the Gilman Scholarship? And they will not know what was that. Have you applied for Fulbright, or are you applying for internships in your field? And nobody seemed to be doing that. So I realized that it was because they were stressed about not having enough funding for their full-time education. So they had to work full-time, they had to study full-time, they had family issues. So that's when I started taking a very active role as mentor. And I took it on myself, to be the one informing them about those opportunities. So every time before entering the classroom, I will remind myself that I had to devote 5 minutes of my class to introduce them to different experiential learning opportunities. And I stopped every single day before the door and I reminded myself of that. Because the moment I entered the classroom, I was pretty sure I would forget if I didn't have that ritual of reminding myself that, hey, I have to be the mentor. I have to be here to introduce them to these opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about the gaps in access, which is something that most of you know already. Our first generation college students do not tend to pursue experiential learning. So because of lack of mentorship, lack of information, and a stress, because of the time constraints. So many of our students are working at the same time that they are studying, right? Nevertheless, research is telling us that high impact practice learning and experiential learning helps students not only to graduate, but also to be more successful, to have better GPA, to be more successful in professional environments. So it is our task as instructors to be able to inform them about all of these experiential learning opportunities. That means that we have to know about them to begin with. So we have to do our homework in terms of what is available for them on campus, right? And how can I best inform them about that? So I see my role as an instructor, and right now, of course, as an administrator, as a mentor. So what I think we need to do is every time that we meet students, go beyond the logistics of the meeting. Maybe we are meeting students just to talk about a class project. Maybe we are meeting them just to talk about whether they should be taking my class next semester or not. Or maybe I'm talking to the student about a recommendation letter the student needs. But try to take a few minutes of that to think about how can you mentor the student in a different capacity. So go beyond the piece of information the student is requiring from you and try to share other information about resources that we have on campus that the student may have not thought about, right? Use a couple of minutes of each class to introduce those campus resources. You can do something such as Monday internships. You come to class and say, hey, do you guys know that we have an internship and co-op office? They may get you a paid internship. This is a website. It literally takes, really 2 or 3 minutes of your class to do that. Maybe you have Monday internships, Tuesday scholarships, and then you introduce your students. Hey, do you know that these offices on campus can inform you about scholarships? Go meet with them. Here are the websites. Then maybe you can do Wednesday research and then come to class for 2 or 3 minutes. Have you thought about the impact that doing some research will have on you as an undergraduate student? Do you think that research is only for students who want to go to graduate school? Well, you're wrong. Research helps you in A, B, and C, right? Being a critical thinker, having something different to show in your resume, a different experience to share with people on your job interviews, right? So try to kind of structure the information that you give them in really 2 or 3 minutes every single day of your classes. And that way, the repetition of that information will stick into your students' brains, right? And they will know that, hey, it's Monday internship, or it's Tuesday scholarship, or it's Wednesday, whatever, whatever is the Wednesday research, right? Is that what we said? Whatever is the information that you want to share. At some point in the semester, these students will go to the internship and co-op office, will go to the undergraduate research office, will pursue these scholarships. Because you have repeated that to them, because they see you as a mentor, and because they trust you. Most of the students that my office gets are referrals from faculty that identify the talent that student has and tell them, hey, go to talk to Dr. Patty at the Office of International Collaborations. She may be able to introduce you to some scholarships to have experiential learning opportunities abroad, right? So I get those students through their referral of colleagues and through their referral of colleagues in administration and colleagues in the faculty, right? So try to be one of those mentors that are there for your students and remind them of these things. So repeating that information is essential. And after a while, you'll see that your students really latch on to that information and act on that. What I mean by comprehensive advising is this. When students come to talk to me about international scholarships, I always go beyond what they come to talk to me about. I always take a few minutes to get to know them a little bit. So I know the usual, what year in college are they, why are they studying what they are studying, what are the minor, for example. Sometimes I just say, okay, what's your minor? What are you passionate about? What would you like to do in future? What are your career dreams or your academic dreams? Are you a first generation college student? Things like that. After that, I answer the questions they came to talk to me about because that's what is important to them at the moment. Usually it is what scholarships they can apply to have an international experience. But after that, I start talking to them about different pathways for them to achieve the success or to achieve those dreams they have. And that's when I introduce other resources on campus. And we talk about what is experiential learning, anything that can give you experiences that are going to be useful for your future in academia or in the job force, studying abroad, service learning, volunteering, etc. Doing research, internships, all of that. And I even open the websites, or I have already the websites open in my computer to show them the website of the Internship and Co-op office. If they are humanities majors, I introduce them to the Monarch Humanities Internship Academy with Mellon-funded internships for them. I introduce them to the Undergraduate Research Office. I talk to them about REUs, like summer research experiences for undergraduate students. Some of them will say, hey, I just don't have time to study abroad, so I take this chance to debunk the idea that if you study abroad, you cannot graduate on time, or you need a lot of money to study abroad. So I explain, you can study abroad during your spring break. You can study abroad during the summer break. You can study abroad applying to these scholarships that may fund your study abroad program. And the same with the research. They may come and say, well, I don't intend to pursue graduate school. I will not be a professor, so I don't need research. So I take that opportunity to say, well, when you do research, you're engaging, you're learning different organizational skills, critical thinking skills that will really help you in future. And that will show you as a very unique candidate when you apply for any kind of job. So I talk to them about funding for undergraduate research. I ask them, what is the GPA? Why is that? Because if they have a 3.5 or above, they can join the Perry Honors College. So I take an opportunity to explain what the Perry Honors College is. It's a place where they can gain a lot of these experiential learning opportunities, where they have classes that are super interesting, etc. Right? I talk about the service learning and volunteer opportunities on campus, and I explain why service learning is important and why volunteering is important. I explain the leadership programs that we have on campus as well. And I also tell them, what if you go to the Internship and Co-op office and you cannot find a paid internship? Well, you can create your own internship. And I suggest ways in which they can do that. You can talk to local nonprofits and tell them, hey, if you cannot pay me for an internship, I can intern with you. I only have 2 hours a week, but I'm happy to do that, right? And that's something that really is going to look awesome on their resume, something they can talk about in a job interview or when they apply for a competitive scholarship or when they apply for graduate school. But it is also something that is going to have an impact in the society because they are going to be helping that nonprofit organization and they are going to be learning great organizational skills and professional skills. So I try to inform them about all of these things. And then I say goodbye to them. I say my door is always open for you to come talk to me anytime. And I follow up with an email in which I summarize all of this and I send links to all of these offices. So they have that information there always. Whenever, maybe not 2 months from the time they saw me or next time I remind this to them or somebody else reminds them, they say, hey, Dr. Patty sent me that email. I'm going to go back because I remember I had good information there. And that's something that they can always have. Another thing that I have done, which is going beyond what the campus offers, is to create my own experiential learning opportunities. And I will share some experiential learning opportunities I created as faculty. First of all, and this is something that I forgot to add to this presentation, I have been engaging in virtual international exchanges in my classes since, I would say, early 2000s. We used to do those exchanges with Google Hangouts, meaning I would invite people in other countries to talk to my students. I would invite their students to talk to my students, and they would have these international experiences during my class time. And that's something that my students used to put on their resumes under global engagement or global experiences, for example. I also created programs where my students went to local schools a couple of times a week to teach foreign language classes. At that time, I was teaching Chinese language, Mandarin, so my students would go to local schools and teach. Some of those were internships I created, so they will do that as an internship for credit. Sometimes they will do it as part of the grade they have for my class. Sometimes I got some local philanthropists to invest money, so my students will be paid for doing that work. One way or another, it was a great experience for them because it was professional experience and something that really enriched their personal lives to see, to teach and share their knowledge with children, and also enhance their CVs and their resumes when they were looking for jobs. I created a tutorial system where my advanced Chinese language students would be tutors of beginning Chinese language students. And by the way, some of my students who got Fulbright scholarships got them because in their applications they referred to these experiential learning opportunities that I had created for them. They said, for example, a student of mine got a Fulbright to teach English in Taiwan, and she talked about going to a local school twice a week to teach half an hour of Chinese, and she talked about teaching Chinese online during COVID. That we were teaching, my students were teaching elementary students in China during the time of the lockdown, for example. So all of these experiences that she gained in my classes as part of this experiential learning that I built into the class and into the grade that they will receive for the class became her story when she was applying for a Fulbright, which is a very prestigious, very competitive scholarship. And she got it because she showed that she had the necessary experience for that and the necessary motivation. As an administrator, right now in my position as director of the Office of International Collaborations, I have created all other programs that also provide experiential learning opportunity for our students. One of them is the Bridge program. These are classes that our graduate students teach to our international partners. So I have a little bit of funding to pay to our international students, to our graduate students to design their own classes, very short, 5 to 7 sessions. And then I get them students at our international partner institutions. They join online, and our graduate students can teach these 5 to 7 sessions, not for credit, just for enrichment classes, right? But it's a great experience for our graduate students to gain the experience of teaching an international class, students from different countries, right? Because they also have to design their own class. It's very creative. So I think it's a great enrichment opportunity for our graduate students. What I'm trying to do as well is to find undergraduate students who can help them as intercultural facilitators or TAs. So that way, I'm also creating an experiential learning opportunity for our undergraduate students. I created an international ambassador program, so students volunteer, maybe only some occasionally when we have international guests on campus. They welcome the international guests, they give them a tour around campus, they participate in all the events we have planned for that delegation, which means that maybe for half a day they are interacting with people from Estonia, from Ukraine, from Ghana, learning about their experiences. And this again goes to their resume and goes to those stories they have to tell every time that they apply for a scholarship, every time they apply for a job, or when they apply for graduate school, right? So it's a way to giving them material experiences to make their stories more compelling when they are applying for further opportunities in their academic or professional careers. I have also invited students to participate in hiring committees from hiring interns, hiring work study students, to hiring a higher position in our office. Why is that useful? Students participate, they know how to look critically at applications, job applications. They realize what job application is good, what CV or resume is well written, They participate in job interviews, so they are learning how to interview themselves when they are in a similar situation. So all of those are experiences that I created to put my students in positions of leadership, and to create opportunities for them that they can talk about when they apply for scholarships and graduate school and jobs in the future. So that's the role I see that we as educators and mentors can start implementing from day one, from the first day that you get into the classroom. That could it be as a GA, as a teaching assistant, or could it be as a faculty member? And be systematic about it. Be systematic about including that information about experiential learning opportunities, offices on campus that provide experiential learning opportunities, including all of that on your syllabus. You can also make, I often used to have a test for my syllabus. I will put all the information for the class plus the other enrichment or opportunities in my syllabus, and then I will have a small quiz. And then I will ask students, what were the scholarships that you could apply to study abroad? And that forced my students to really read critically my syllabus and understand the content, but then sometimes go back to the syllabus and reread about those scholarships that would pay them to study abroad, right? So be very mindful on that. And be mindful on the fact that students trust you, and students will tend to do what you suggest to them. So if you just use a few minutes of your class every day to share with them some opportunities, to suggest that they think outside the box and outside what they think it is a college experience, and they venture into other experiential learning opportunities, students will trust you and then will follow your lead. So those are my suggestions of how to be a mentor, being an instructor or an administrator.
Thank you so much for the insights and for some of the advice. What I think particularly resonated with me was this idea of being consistent, right? Trying to do it regularly in class so it becomes expected, and they actually maybe even look forward to the resources or the information that you want to share with for that particular class session. I think we sometimes get too rushed in, I have to get through my content. What am I going to teach today? We neglect to maybe set aside a little bit of that time to help
Mhm.
a little bit more comprehensively. So I really
That's
appreciate
true.
that
Thank you.
advice to maybe be consistent and be mindful of how you can bring that in more regularly. I wanted to ask a question about the experiential learning, and I think experiential learning is a great way for students to learn.
Mhm.
But could you offer maybe some insights into how you can squeeze in or fit in experiential learning when sometimes as faculty we have teachers, we have X, Y, and Z that we have to cover, and
Mhm.
you don't necessarily know how to translate that into a connection to experiential learning.
Yeah, so service learning, for example, is a great way to include experiential learning. All experiential learning that I included in my classes was for credit. So, because otherwise, students, especially our students who are so busy working and coming to class, commuting, some of them, right? Wasting a lot of time, not investing a lot of time in the commuting and all that. So, for them, if it's not building into the grade, they may not see the importance of that because they are juggling so many things at the same time. So if you build that, for example, my experiential learning was 30% of the grade when I was teaching in my previous institution. And I would look for experiential learning that matched my learning, outcomes, the learning outcomes of the class. So when I was teaching language, it was easier because I will engage them in either tutoring, online tutoring, and I will also be mindful of their time. So I will never request it that they will do that for many hours a week, but maybe half an hour a week they will be tutoring Chinese, for example, when I was teaching Chinese. But you can do the same with tutoring math, right? If your students cannot go to a local school to tutor math because of the distance and all of that, they can be tutors in class, in at ODU. So there are ways in which they can do that. In other classes I taught my students, the experiential learning was helping local NGOs, for example. So if I was teaching, let's say you're teaching a communications class, you're teaching social media, different things like that, then you can build in your experiential learning. It will be, your final project, you will be helping a local NGO to develop a small social media campaign, right? Or something of that nature. So it depends on what you're teaching. Think about how can the activities that you plan for class, how can they have an impact? Another way to build in experiential learning is to come to my office, for example, and ask for an international partner with whom you can collaborate. Your students in your class are doing the usual activity. Well, they could be doing the same activity with students abroad in another class, and then just meet online virtually 2 or 3 times per semester, but they will be gaining global experience. They will be learning what is to work with people that maybe their native languages is not English, people that think and work in a different way. And those are very important skills that your student will learn for life. And those skills also go directly to the resume. I even tell students how to build all these experiential learnings in the resume, in which areas of the resume they should be writing about these experiential learning opportunities. So a lot of faculty on campus are engaging in COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning, and they just do that. They say, I want to give my students an international experience while I'm teaching criminal justice. Then it is my duty to go around and look for an international partner who's teaching a similar class, and then students can collaborate in a project. And that is already a wonderful experiential learning. It's like studying abroad without leaving your classroom, right? So there are many different ways in which you can do that.
Well, and Patty, you mentioned resources. And so I think that's really important to emphasize
Yeah,
that faculty, as teachers, we don't have to go at it alone. There are potentially partners across
exactly.
the university and your colleagues who might have done something well that you can learn from.
Hmm.
Programs at the university, even outside of the university, you offered some of those examples as well. So I think it's really important to remember, yes, it feels sometimes that you're doing this all by yourself, but you really don't have to be doing this by yourself, that there are resources that you can
Exactly. I'm
tap into.
thinking if service learning, for example, we do have colleagues that they just help you design your service learning project. They even have small scholarships or funding where you can apply for and do something special in your class that is service learning related. The issue about resources that we as administrators and faculty are so busy sometimes that we don't have time to even know what are the resources that our university offers. So I think that's the kind of the most important thing is for us to know, and then to think, how am I going to integrate that information into my syllabus and my daily 2 3 minutes of opportunities. So just call it like that. Hey, hi, how are you guys? Okay, let's talk about this. Just 2 minutes. And that sometimes is enough, for the students to be motivated and say, or just share your personal stories. We have so many faculty that have wonderful, really experiential learning things to tell, stories to tell, but we are so busy and so obsessed of covering the whole material that we sometimes forget to share our personal experience. We have faculty have been, for example, just keep talking about the international things because that's what my office does. They have been in the Peace Corps for 2 years in Nepal, and they have this wonderful experience. They can talk about their experience in Nepal and say, hey, by the way, you can apply to Peace Corps too. It's a wonderful professional development, wonderful experience opportunity, or Fulbright, etc. Right? So, but sometimes we just are more, we get lost into the issue of covering the whole material and teaching our subject, and we forget that we are also mentors.
And I think for some of this subject matter, helping students connect it to the real world, to potential career opportunities beyond just
Exactly.
this class also helps them connect with the content and help it resonate a little bit more with them too. So I think there are additional benefits to bringing in those examples and sharing your own personal
Yes, exactly.
experiences.
You said it right. Make it more real and more relevant for them. Yes, for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Sure.
opportunity.
Yeah, that I'm sure that there are many different pieces of this comprehensive advising that uh, teachers can take and use in their own classes. I appreciate
Mm.
you joining us, and for the rest of you, I hope that you'll enjoy this teaching fair session and a variety of other ones that we offer.
Thank you.